You're listening to the groundbreaking community stream. Hi, this is Q live and direct from Delhi. Thanks for making it to episode 4 and also for sharing some views. If you think you have some idea or some feedback to support this podcast, please shoot me a mail mentioned in the description. For today's episode, we have Swati Dhanda, who's a lead CMF designer working at Rimac Automobili. We'll be talking about her journey from a design student to a professional with her intercontinental work experience from brands like Yellow Windows, Alstom, and Adient. Hi, Swati. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Deepak. Thank you for that.
How's it going with you? Good to see you.
Good. Likewise, good to see you also after a long time.
Yes, it's. I'm assuming it's kind of an early morning there at Croatia.
Yeah, it's 9:30, so not too early anymore. But yeah.
How's it going with you? Like, how's work?
Work is good. Work has been really busy. I don't know if you've been watching the social media handles from Rimac, but we're gearing up for the launch of the production version of our concept. So it's been really crazy the past few months, actually the last year. So yeah, super busy.
Awesome. Great to know that. Tell us about your schooling. Where did you study? If I'm not wrong, it's Ludhiana. You're from Ludhiana, right?
Yeah, I'm from Ludhiana. I went to a convent school. So my schooling was from this Sacred Heart Convent school in Ludhiana. So it was really strict. We had like sisters as our principal, and some of them also teaching us. We had like moral science courses. And we like Christmas was a big thing in school. We used to have carol singing and crib making competition. But in general, it was really, I think it was, as I look back now, it was a nice schooling experience because there was a lot of stress on everybody being simple and everybody being treated equal, because I think it was like one of the best schools in Ludhiana at the time. So all the industrialists kids used to also come there, and obviously they had like lots of money and they could afford a lot of things. But it's nice that you can have that environment where everybody is at the same place. So in that context, it was really nice. Some of the things were not so great, but all in all, I think I liked my schooling.
Sounds like better than most of the schooling I had probably. Yeah. So
how was your school like?
Yeah, it was good. It was all fun. It was like most of the time I spent just studying and I wasn't clear what I wanted to do. So yeah, but I think it was a good decision to study design. How did you did you have like it was planned that you wanted to do design after school?
Actually, yeah, I think I vaguely remember when I was in 8th or 9th standard, I wanted to go and do automotive design. I don't know how I came to that idea.
Wow.
Actually, but I was like always focused in school. Like I knew what I wanted to do like few years in advance of when I had to make any decisions. So it was like I think I remember once our teacher, like class teacher, was asking all of us what we wanted to be when we graduated from school, and I said, "Oh, I want to be an automotive designer." And people around me also didn't know what it was. People are like, "Oh," wow. I remember this one friend of mine. He was like, "Yeah, you're gonna design flying cars, hopefully at that time." But it was really funny because no one actually. I also didn't know what it was, what it entailed. I had no idea at the time. And I thought that I would have to pursue engineering first and then go to design. I was still in that phase where I was researching what I could do. And I knew that my parents probably wouldn't send me abroad just after 12th standard. So I was thinking to take this route of like automotive engineering and then maybe something. So that's why I took non-medical, like I took science, maths subjects in my 11th and 12th grade. But yeah, then it turned out that you don't actually need to do engineering for design. So yeah, it was like, yeah, it was, I don't know how, but it was planned. Yes, it was.
Yeah, that's great to know. Because a lot of them, even I didn't know what automotive design or industrial design was when I was in school. And and as you mentioned, you were in 8th or 9th standard, which is I think so awesome, right? And how did you even know about it? So were you fascinated with cars or anything in specific, which was your inspiration behind going for a pursue career in automotive design?
Yeah, I think I was fascinated with cars. I actually wanted to do just something different. I was always like in the hunt for trying new things. And like when you think of schooling back then, when I was in school, everybody who was pursuing non-medical or was wanted to do engineering, wanted to give IIT exams or AIEEE, or it was like a race, and I was not. I gave those exams, obviously, but I knew I wasn't. I didn't want to do that. Or like some of my friends wanted to pursue architecture. I actually also gave architecture exams, but I wanted to do always something unique. There was a time where I wanted to pursue aeronautical engineering. I think there was like aerospace, National Aerospace Olympiad, which I took part in also. So wow. I was always like, oh, I don't want to do what like everybody wants to do. So I think it was like, yeah, that clubbed with fascination about cars also. So that's what I entered school with. Like I was really fascinated by car design, and I was fascinated by some of the car designers at the time also. So that was my entry. But then, as you know, and you've seen my journey also, it's not been that much of car design. Then I really understood that design is much beyond that, and some of the other aspects of design fascinated me more during the course of my education in design.
Okay, yeah. Then you started applying to colleges and ISD happened, or it was was it certain that you had to go to ISD, or you had some other options also?
In fact, ISD was really like a surprise. I think I was giving my exams for all the architecture schools, BARC and everything, and I was I was thinking that I would probably go to Pforzheim or something like in a couple of years once I finish my early graduation course. I gave engineering also, but I didn't want to. It didn't draw me in that much. So then suddenly, because like all my friends knew that I wanted to do this since I had planned it. One of my friends was in actually not her, but her dad was in Chandigarh, and there was this like one of those career expos or something, and there was somebody advertising about ISD, and he brought back this pamphlet for me, and he gave it to his daughter, and he said that, oh, your friend should like look at it. Wow. So, and I was like, okay, I didn't know about the school at all. That's how I got to know about it. And then I researched, and then my sister was already in Pune at the time. She was doing her law degree from ILS. And she said, oh, the college is in Pune, so I can go down and visit it and talk to people. So I think Tomadal was giving her a tour of the college, and he said that to her, she was really like impressed by the college because she came from this old school ILS, law school kind of environment. And she said, oh, your college looks like the building looks really modern. The tutors know what they're talking about. They've brought in also tutors from the industry. So it seems like good place. But Tomadal gave her like an honest answer that, oh, if you can afford to, or if your sister is really passionate about this, she should also think about other schools. Like one of the schools he said was Pforzheim itself. But anyway, I gave the entrance and I got in, and I wasn't like I think my parents, my mom really supported me because she like I was always focused and I knew what I wanted. So she said, "Oh, you're gonna do fine." But my dad wasn't so sure. He was like, "Oh, this is a new college. It's not like a university," and all those like normal
Yeah.
questions and stuff.
Yeah. The big
So
pointers.
he had those reservations. Yeah, he has had those reservations. So actually, my granddad like gave the to you have to give in some money to reserve the seat. Since my dad wasn't so sure, my granddad did that. So it was like a funny story. But yeah, I told myself, let's give it 1 year and see how it goes. Otherwise, I can always go back to architecture. So yeah, it was really like chance.
And you think that it was a good decision that you made that time?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I
Yeah.
think it was like one of those experiences. I mean, being from India and being looking at the college system that usually you have in India, and looking at my siblings and my friends and how they've studied and what kind of education they've had, I think it was a really unique experience that we got, not just in terms of like studying about design, but also in terms of the kind of relationship we had with our tutors, with each other. The environment was really special. I think that's something that I really liked about ISD.
And how was your initial foundation years? Was like you started with enjoying it, or it was something that okay, maybe this is that you had to question yourself if you've signed up in a right field or not? How was the foundation year was like for you?
I mean, it
Like,
was a mix. Obviously, like we all came with so much ideas from how it should be, and how it turned out to be was slightly different from what you imagined, obviously. So yeah, it was a mix. There were some highs and lows, and especially in the early years, there's lots of questioning and self doubt. I think all of us went through that. And I remember we had like these sketch podiums in the beginning, and then there was like, of course, in my class there were like really guys who were already good at it from the beginning. I think Abu was one of them. He was like sketching all the time, and he was really good at sketching parts. So so I think like looking at people, because I came from this when I was studying in school, and I used to do, I wanted something like a combination of art and science always, because I was really interested by art and I was really fascinated by physics and maths, and those were things that I liked doing. And I was I considered myself that I'm good at art, but sketching is not the same as art. And I think unlearning some of the things that you do as like drawing and learning it again. I had obviously studied perspective. I was sitting in for architecture exams also, but not in the way that you unlearn things and you learn things. I
yeah.
think first year was really about that, and foundation was all about that. It was really like you're thrown in to something where you really need to specialize. So it was really good. But yeah, like I said, like looking at people like Abu or Mario was really like his perspective was on point from the beginning. So
Yeah.
I remember that. So yeah, it was also a feeling of, oh shit, am I like making a mistake because people are so much better? But then yeah, it was that. But then like I also became really close friends with all the people who were in studying with me. So then also seeing them as people outside, and then sharing knowledge, and then slowly finding our own expertise was really cool. But I remember this like one instance. I don't know if Mario's going to hear this, but it's going to be fun. I think he probably knows. But there was this one class we had with perspective class with Fabia, and he was like giving us cubes to draw. And then, like in his usual, I don't know if you guys studied with Fabia at all, but in his usual, setting, he would go like, "Are you kidding me? Is that a cube? No, it's not." And I think I don't remember. I got like a 12 on my cube, and he would like put everybody's cubes on the board, and then he would mark you like publicly, and then talk about your cube. And I think Mario got 18, and all of us were like 11, 12, because we were learning perspectives. Like what? Like so, I think he was like a lot ahead of us already from the beginning, because he was really good. He was practicing his
Yeah,
craft from the
constantly working
beginning.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was for me, those times were a bit when I was asking myself this, because I was used to being um, good at things that I did, used to being in like control and used to being like, oh, I know what I'm doing. So I think design was something that you also need to learn. It's very personal. It's an expressive creative field, right? So it's also very personal. You can't do everything by the book. You need to also put yourself out there, and putting yourself out there is the hardest thing to do because it makes you vulnerable. So I think learning that, all of that, how to put how much of your own self into your craft is something that you learn, and then you become more confident on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the beginning years were pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, well said. Because I think in foundation years, we most of the time we are into that traditional environment, like traditional automotive or traditional product design. But I like I think you've always broke that norm and like disrupted it with design thinking. So how did that happen? How did that happen when you realize, okay, maybe I am not the person who needs to follow a traditional automotive design, and look for uh, other orientation of designs like human centered design and design thinking. When did you realize that, okay, that is something which is also a vital part of design? And
Mm-hmm. I think for the longest time in the beginning, I couldn't obviously see it like that because everybody was focusing on the more traditional aspects of industrial design. But and also I needed to learn about design in itself. So I think basic design courses, when in the beginning, when we would learn about, oh, design is basically simply about making people's lives a bit better, and also about solving problems at the core of it, at the heart of it. So at the beginning, those things are just words to you. You don't understand them so much. And you're just like, because you're trying to soak in every information, you're learning skills, you're also learning thought process. But all in all, when it comes together and when you have the hand of like basic skills, and when you start expressing yourself and you try to see how where that takes you, I realized that for me it was hard to sketch something without knowing what is the purpose of that. So some people could just practice their craft for the sake of practicing their craft. You're sketching something, but for me it came really hard. I wanted to first understand what I'm doing, have the story built in, and then the form would come more easily to me. So I think it was a mix of like it's it's how you learn things, how you understand things in general. Like for even for the basic things, like if I'm studying something like history or geography in school, I couldn't just cram things. I wanted to understand them. Or when you're reading about something bigger like philosophy or spirituality, also in that case, I cannot just like read things and uh, cram them if I don't understand them. So for me, it's the way that I learn is always like by understanding. So I think it came part of that came naturally, and the other bit came from some of the seniors that I used to talk to and I used to interact with. Also, my some of my peers like Abu and I used to have long conversations about design and what it means, and how how we can think about it in a broader way, like from a design thinking point of view, and not just creating products. And I think the real switch real switch happened when I went to my internship to Yellow Window Design. um, I think they were, I mean, I already had some of those projects in my portfolio from before. I don't remember, I don't know if you remember, but I did this personal project about mobile van, like a mobile van, which is a hospital actually. So it would take,
okay. Yeah, I remember that.
it would drive. So I had that
You want
project
to talk about that
in my,
project? I think that was a very interesting project for all of us. If you can
yeah,
talk about it.
yeah. I mean, that was like, I think one of the first projects that I did for design thinking for human centered design and social innovation space, and that's something that I would like to pursue. I mean, I'm in a hypercar company now, but that's something that's like a long-term goal for me, that I would like to work in the social innovation space. So I think that was the first project that I undertook, and it was really hard, I won't lie, because everybody else around me was making really cool sketches and renders, and I was doing that, and I was like, I remember there was Ashwin, Philip, Idicula, and Rujuta. Both of them are seniors, and I was like going to them all the time and trying to understand, oh, how should I package? How many people should be? So I remember we were in the third floor on the place where we used to have our presentations, and then I went there with tape, and like they helped me with chairs, like those basic things. I was just looking up to my seniors and asking them how I should go about it, and then making that package in real time, and then coming back and doing that. And then I also did the 3D for it myself. So it was the first project that I did from start to finish, because I really believed in it, and it was a like self-written brief also. And I think it was in the first few, like in the creativity phase, I was lacking behind, because I needed to think about how things would happen before I could start sketching, like I said, so but at the end, it turned out to be interesting. Like it turned out to be one of those projects where you're thinking about people flow. It was the first project that I did with people flow, and I think that that's something that I carried forward to my internships later. I was interested in the big picture and touch point to touch point interaction about design. So that project actually was what got me into Yellow Window. I think they liked that I was thinking like that, and then that internship really helped me, not just in this sphere of thinking about this design as a bigger picture, but also Julia, who was my mentor, he, mm, in his own way, he made me own my sensitivity. So if you're sensitive towards some things, it's a plus. It's not a, it's not something that you should hide. You should express it, and if your expression is different, then it's also a good thing. So I think though that project and my first internship was the moment where I started expressing this more. Yeah.
Great, great. And how did you get into Yellow Windows? You knew about that firm, or like was it in the list of the brands you would like to work?
Yeah, I mean, when we were in our portfolio shows and like reviews, they used to sit down with our tutors, thinking about, oh, where do you want to go and what do you want to do. I remember one of the places that I said was Design Impact, which is a social innovation agency, and I had written to them and I spoke to Fabian, oh, I want to do something in this, and he was pushing me, because um, it was something that everybody knew that I wanted to pursue, but he was also not so sure, because it's not a design agency; it's a social innovation agency. And while I was looking and applying for other things, I think Yellow Window was one of the places that I wanted to go to. And then because Julia is an ISD alumnus, Fabian knew him, and Fabian gave me his contact also. So I think because of his contact and because of my projects itself, actually they told me in Yellow Window that one of the reasons they decided to take me versus the other students who also applied to them was this project, which really got them interested. They thought that I could think like what they were expecting. Yeah.
Do you have that project uploaded anywhere? I think I'd like to add that to the description, the link.
I think I'm not sure if I kept it in my student portfolio later, but I can probably send it to you.
Yeah, we'll try to.
I will look for it if it's in my old uploads. I haven't uploaded anything since a while.
I think I think it'll be a good project also for people to see, because something like a medical van or something like an ambulance has a lot of key points that needs to be taken care of. So Yellow Windows was in Paris or Antwerp. You were in which one you were in? Right?
Yeah,
Was it in?
I was in Paris, so it actually was not in Paris, but in the
Okay.
southwest of Paris.
Okay.
And I was living in Paris, and I was traveling to them. I mean, it was just on the outskirts of Paris, and I did do 10 days in Antwerp. So I was sent into Antwerp for just an experience and to do some little short project there. That was also a really interesting project. I was doing some packaging for storage solutions there, and I think the whole approach in Yellow Window was thinking from the start about the problem, trying to be uh, disruptive, and thinking about really they wanted to create really iconic products and designs and public transportation or whatever it was. It was always about uh, user experience. So that's the first place where I started also learning about service design, because there was that was the first place that I heard about service design at all. So there was Joanne, my colleague there,
Yeah.
who was a service designer, and she had a really different way of approaching things and looking at any design problem. So yeah, it was a really good place for me to be. Let's put it like this: like it was the perfect place for me at the right time, so, and I really learned a lot and grew from that experience.
Hmm. And okay, that's where you also taught yourself about the know-how of service design and how maybe a public transportation pipeline is designed,
Mm-hmm.
or like how does it work for the users. So let's talk about our long project that we've done together.
Yeah.
I think I didn't know
Do
about
you want to start?
yeah,
How
of
was
course. So
yours?
I'll say what I was. I'll tell you about my zone. So I knew about yellow windows, and I always was fascinated with tram design and metro
Mm-hmm.
design. So
Mm-hmm.
the time I realized, okay, there's some brief like that. So just for the people who doesn't know that, in our curriculum, we used to have this long project where we used to work with seniors. Like
Yeah.
third year used to work with fifth years. So this is when I was in third year. So the time I've realized that there's some brief like that. I was intrigued, and I reached out to one of my senior, and then I met Swati. And I think I was at that time I was still figuring out a lot of things, because we had to make our portfolios and stuff like that. And I think
Yeah.
at the same time, it was one of that project which also taught me a lot of things about design, thanks to you, Swati. So I think yeah, I think you should talk about it. How do you get that project? That the brief we got from the yellow windows.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, so at that time, that was the first time when long projects became like thesis projects, and usually we would get long project briefs from our college. So we would get in touch with either we would do a live project with a company who would not sponsor, but who would give the brief to us, and the college would put us in touch with them, or it would be like just project brief thought from the college faculty, and we would work on it with the faculty being our only sole mentors. But in this case, in this year, our faculty told us that, oh, you guys are in senior years, you should do your own thesis, and you should come up with your own projects, and you can do it with a team or alone, and you can contact companies if you'd like. So it was sort of like thrown in the dead end kind of situation for us. So since my experience with Yellow Window was great, and they were the best contacts that I had in the industry at that time. I'd only come back from my year 4 internship. I thought, yeah, why not do this project together with them? And one of the reasons was also that I learned really a lot in my internship. I worked on a lot of projects, but I had just like started dipping into this user experience, especially thinking, like they used to call it, like think like a passenger. because in the public transportation domain, you put yourself in the shoes of the passenger. And also with service design, I just started scratching the surface. Actually, it's like when you're learning, but you're learning unconsciously. You're just hearing and learning. It wasn't conscious learning. And I wanted to use all of that learning and put it into a project that I did now, away from that space, with also my own understanding and my own implementation. So when I look back to it now, I think there would be a lot of things that I could and would do better if I was given that project now, because I was still new. But the reasons for me were that I was always also fascinated by trams, especially because I think that trams are like it's something between architecture and
It
transportation, because
reflects
they
the
need to switch
personality
to
of the
the.
city.
Yeah, exactly. And when I was in Paris, I also went to visit Devanshi, my friend from
Mm.
school back then, and she was doing an internship in Bordeaux. And one of the tram designs that I really liked was in Bordeaux. And it's something that fits into the character of the city. And I saw Julia create these really iconic designs. And really understanding what the city meant and coming up with solutions for the city, for the people, and then making it really easy to use and for the people, really. So I was trying to do all of that. And the city I chose was Antwerp, because I was also in Antwerp and I was fascinated. I think it was really in some ways naive, because I was trying to do a lot of things. But in some ways, it was really also brave, because we were trying to do a lot of things all together. But it was really interesting experience. I don't know how it was for you specifically, but I think for the team, also for us, we really learned. And it was at the end, I saw, and if I look back now to that project, I think there was some really interesting ideas. Probably if more experienced designers worked on it, it could turn into a really interesting concept also.
Yeah, I think I still think it was like already so good, honestly. And I have personally learned a lot of things, you've taught me some brainstorming techniques, like lotus blossom techniques. I still remember it clearly. And also I also learned how do you make a journey map. And I think these were one of the few techniques and processes which I still use it to a point. Of course, I've also got better at it by reading and stuff. But I think at that time, when I've the kind of process we were following in the project was really on point. And I think college gives us that space to try out different things and like go out of the box. So I think there's always a lot of space to improvement. But I think till date, that was one of the best project I've worked on, even as a student. So yeah, I think it. And also later, I was fortunate enough to visit the city of Antwerp. So during research time, we were reading so much about Antwerp, and you also used to share a lot about Antwerp. And then when I visited the port designed by Zaha Hadid, I forgot the name of the port. I went there and I spent some time in the city, and it was very special. And I think it always makes me smile when I think about the project and how could I have worked on, like I could have spent better efforts on that project. But I think it was again a great learning. It came out fine, I think. Better than fine,
I think
though.
it was at the end. It was actually the outcome was really really nice from also visual perspective. We did trams that looked good also at the end, but they had some story connecting them, and that's what I think makes it special, at least for me. And it's good to hear that it was nice for you. I remember when you spoke about brainstorming techniques, I remember once where we were like outside in the garden and running.
Yeah.
There was lots of things that we tried.
Yeah.
And I think some of those things I attribute to because I had really close friends in product design, and I always took inspiration from how they were doing things. Because I think in transportation design, we sometimes forgot the purpose of things and why we are doing something, and really trying to find design solutions that connected with people and made it, their problems, solved their problems. We were trying to make things that looked good, which is also really great. It's a purpose in itself. But I think for me, I was always looking for storytelling and connecting it with the people. So I think that project was about that. We had built stories around the product, and we eventually managed to connect it to that story. Also, the final look. So yeah, it was an interesting project. We also made like a mock-up at the
Yeah.
end.
Very quick.
Yeah.
So, what was your state of mind when you after that project? I think just after that project you had to apply for another internship, right? If
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
getting the timeline wrong. So, what was your
I
state of
think, yeah,
mind?
you're right.
What kind of brands you were reaching out to work?
I was applying mostly to agencies that specialize, I mean, did work on user-centered design and touch-point based design, because by then I knew this is what I wanted to do, to pursue. I wanted to be in either, I mean, the kind of projects I did in Yellow Window was something that I would like to pursue, like aircraft design, public transportation, where you're thinking about lots of people, something which almost goes into architecture or public services, like thinking about how people move and flow. That was something that I understood that I wanted to do. And yeah, then I also applied to some other companies. Like I applied to DAF, for instance, also because I'd done this project with DAF. I was really fascinated by truck
Yeah,
design
yeah. I
also,
think
because
I
it's
think.
also again,
Sorry to interrupt you. I think you should
yeah,
also talk about that draft project you did. I think that was again one of
yeah.
the projects I was which came out really nice. The and the exterior and even the interior. Do you want to talk about it before we
Yeah,
go
yeah,
to
sure,
the
sure.
next?
That's I think the project that I'll remember always. Also because along with because when I was doing the project with you, I already had this experience of being a team lead, and I was, you know, smarter in that way. I knew what I was doing. But when we were doing DAF, it was the first time I was leading a team, and it was a team of 7 people in the interior and then 7 exterior, and we had to work together. So
Wow.
the good things and the challenges that come with that were like immense, and we were doing it for the first time. So it was all new. We wanted to, like, Trishala was my co-lead. She was from product design, so we also had this perspective from product, and it's then when we realized a lot of things about what kind of designers we wanted to be, what kind of leaders we wanted to be. We were always trying to be inclusive, and um, understanding what the forte of each design team member was, because some people are considered, oh, you're not so good in design, but everybody had so much to contribute, and everybody individually brought so much to the project. I think it was the most fun that we had together, because there was a lot of us. And yeah, just that journey was really special, because we learned so much about truck design in India. We expressed it in our own way, and then we brought it to the design solutions, and then working together with the exterior team also, we went to, like, truck stops, we went to dhabas to talk to truck drivers and so on. I think that whole, like, we did some of the things that you should do when you're doing a project like that. And we had a really great, let's say, mentorship from Bart. He also gave us some ideas of how we should approach things, and how we how you go about designing this kind of a product. But equally, on the other side, we also put our own sense into the project. He didn't know what truck design in India looked like, and we brought that window. We were like that window. And some of the things that we produced at the end, he said that I've never seen this kind of approach. So I think that was really like humbling experience. And also for the interior at the end, we were how you connect all the different ideas and bring it together was a really challenging but interesting experience for us, and it came about in a nice way. So yeah, I think the best thing that I liked about that project was the journey, about the approach we took towards the concepts and our whole design process, and also the people themselves, because everybody had a unique influence on the project, and it was really great to work on that. I think that's also one of my favorite projects.
Yeah, because I remember watching your presentations clearly, and the feedback. Bart, I think Bart recorded a video and shared it with you all, which you
Yeah,
shown in the
he
final
did.
presentation, and which was
Yeah.
overwhelming. And I think a lot of us being the juniors and looking for, like, and applying and also figuring out, it was again one of the projects that we looked forward to, because I think it's also because of the space we were in. The presentation meant a lot, and it had a lot of information which used to teach us a lot of things than our own projects. So yeah, I think that was again a nice one. So after, I think, yeah, talking about your second work experience, which was Alstom design, right? How did that happen?
So in the same way that I was applying to other agencies, I also applied to Alstom. And I mean, it was at that time, by then I understood that public transportation could be something that I wanted to pursue, and I wanted to work in that space. So yeah, I had this opportunity to apply to Alstom, and I did, and it was a great experience. It was in some ways contrasting to Yellow Window because it was a bigger company and they had less freedom, and they had to think about the um, manufacturability of everything, because they're also an OEM. So in those senses, and also it was a big company. It wasn't a small agency where you have like a small team. But in other ways, it was quite similar because of the industry. It's the same industry. It's public transportation. You still need to think from people flow point of view. And I did 6 months there, and it was also a really great experience. I contributed to a lot of different projects, like live projects that were going on, but I also did my own project there, which was, I think, also my culmination of all my learning. And if I look at the tram project that I did before with us together and the one that I did later, I think I could see maturity in the design ideas in the later project, and I could see how I understood things a bit better from a different perspective. So that project was also really, and it also took inspiration from some of the ideas I had for the van project. So it was like really like circle of my design experience, and I put in a lot of work there. And yeah, if you look at the different projects that I did, all either individual or team projects, I think the common thread was that I was thinking about touch points, interactions of the user with the product, how the experience makes people feel. Does it make their life a bit simpler? And also, if it can bring something new, like, a new kind of experience. So it was a really great challenging project. And also there I had to explain to, so the project was about the Mumbai suburban rail, and I had to redesign the experience and explaining people from France about how the suburban rail system works in India, because it's a really contrasting experience. You don't know how it is until you experience it.
Yeah.
The local trains, and explaining to them the scenario of how it works was, I think, really also interesting. And also getting their perspective from a different culture. And one of the things that was the greatest learning from me from that project was that if you think about extreme use case scenarios, like in the local train, it's really being used in an extreme way. You can come up with design solutions which are maybe even universally applicable. It can also benefit another market or another kind of usage because you're trying to satisfy the extreme. So it was really, a lot of great learning there also. And I had a great mentor there also, Augustin, who was guiding me. And he had actually had experience to the locals. He
Wow.
traveled, he traveled 10 months. He took like a 10-month travel break from Alstom, where he was researching about travel and journeys. So one of the places that he visited was India. I don't know how long he was in India, but he traveled in the local, I think. Also, he saw how people, experience. So it was really interesting for me to work with him also.
What did he had to say about the local scene in Bombay? Did he mention
I
about
think
the hassles?
one of the key insights that I got from him was like for him it was really interesting that people in if you travel in the train in France, for example, if you sit in the TGV or even on the metro, you have your own individual seats, and you get your own space. But in India, he said in locals you have benches, and that makes perfect sense because it's flexible. If it's full of people, you have this half seat concept where people sit on the side and travel. But if it's not full and it's like it's not a rush hour, then people have the opportunity to like lie down even on it. So he said it offers so much flexibility, and it's just a different way of traveling, and people don't have that much. It's also cultural, right? People don't have that much people don't seek, or they do seek, but they don't get so much privacy. So it's a different cultural approach. Like in the tram, if you travel in the tram or in the train in the Paris or big cities, sometimes even if the tram is full or the metro is full, you would have like pin drop silence. People are not talking to each other. But in the Mumbai local, if you contrast that, it's like people are talking to each other. And this, I think I took from these habits that people have also a lot of inference for the design. For instance, one of the things about communication, how people communicate with each other, was really interesting, and how you can grow that, and how the train can boost their communication, that they want to talk to each other. So it was like those things that made the project really special for me. And some of those most of those ideas came from me, but the thought process that of this, like contrasting the experience, came from the fact that when I was talking to the people there and explaining them, it was really new to them. So some things I said, it's strange because it's really different the way we do it. So if I wasn't in that context, if I was in India, maybe some of those ideas wouldn't come because it would be normal for us. It's really normal for us that that's how people behave. But when you go in a different context and you contrast that behavior, you understand, it's not normal. So it's something special that you can take from this habit. You can take some inspiration. You can put that into your design. So it was cool. Wow. Interesting.
I think that's a really great insight you just shared. You've worked in an agency on more or less the similar which had more or less the similar kind of the processes. How was it different from working in an agency and then working in an OEM on more or less the same on the same brief? How was it different?
Mm-hmm. I think some things were like much slower in a big company like Alstom, and sometimes they had less freedom. I was still an intern, so I wasn't privy to all the big decisions that they were making, but I would be included in the meetings or briefing meetings and so on. And I remember clearly that they used to like joke about it, that if on one of the projects, actually, in fact, Yellow Window and Alstom were working together, and I presume they continue to work together a lot because they're based in the same space. So sometimes Alstom would be manufacturing things that other design agencies designed. So they wouldn't be the design team, but they would still be the manufacturer. I think there was a tender for one of the projects at the time, and Yellow Window was one of the design agencies that were working on it. So the Yellow Window design team and Alstom design team were meeting to discuss. And sometimes the Alstom designers would joke that we would give all our creative ideas for Yellow Window to present, because then they might see the day of light. Because if we present them, we wouldn't be allowed, because our engineering and other teams wouldn't allow us to present something that's not feasible. So, but if the other agency presents, and if the customer likes it, then we will have to do it. So it was one of those, like, recurring jokes in the Alstom design team. So yeah, those things were different. Like, you wouldn't have that much freedom to do what you like, because you had this engineer telling you, but this is not possible. So some ideas you wouldn't get to present and push forth. But in some ways, it was also great to be in a bigger company, to understand how people work with each other. I think working with people skills, you learn a bit more. And then, yeah, realizing, following the project through the end. Because when you're in an agency, you do your bit perfectly, but you still don't know what's going to happen to the project. I mean, you can do your best, you can push, but you don't see it through to development. So with a bigger company, you see really from beginning to end things. And yeah, I think there's lots of good and bad sides to each. I think from that experience, I felt like at the end, I felt like I would probably feel more at home in a smaller space, because I like this community atmosphere, that you're everybody knows each other and you're all working together. But that was what I felt then. I think now that I've worked in various different spaces, I think that every place brings its good and bad to it, and we sometimes also need to come out of our comfort zones and experience different things. So if you worked in a big company and big corporate all the time, then it's also a good idea to step out and work in an agency or work by yourself as a freelancer. Versus if you've done just that, it's also a good thing to explore a bigger company. So I think if you have both kind of experiences, it's enriching, each in its own way.
All right. So once you were back after your tenure in Alstom, what were you thinking? Now you had like a number of, like a bunch of skills you always wanted to have, and why do you wanted to work on Alstom, or you had some other plans after that?
I think, yeah, I wanted to work in the public transportation sphere for sure, because I felt like that's something that comes naturally to me. I can give in a lot of good insights and inputs, and I can create really interesting design solutions based on that. But as I remember clearly, I don't think Alstom was looking for a full-time position at the time. I don't know if I even officially applied, because I sort of knew it while I was there.
Yeah.
But also on the other side, I wanted to, like I said, at the time, I felt more comfortable working in a smaller space, and I wanted to try starting my career with a smaller design agency. But yeah, I applied to a lot of different places, and in public transportation sphere at the time, nothing worked out. It wasn't either the position wasn't available, or something or the other didn't work out. And then then after I graduated, I also started thinking about stepping into research, because I liked that bit of the design journey, design process a lot. I liked really to understand about the users, to study their habits, and to see what that brings to the design. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was to venture into design research. And I got an opportunity at Adient to do that. They were looking for a design researcher, and I got to know through my senior Anshuman that they were looking for someone. So I applied for the position. And the great thing was, usually when you have market research or product research in India, or even in bigger companies outside, they're usually not part of the design team. They're more either under the marketing team, marketing or communications, or then they're part of like R&D, advanced insights. They're never so closely linked with design. And so it was a really small niche that was doing that. And Adient was doing that. So their research team was within the design department. So yeah, I had an interview with my then future boss, Ashwini, and I was explaining her what my idea was about research. I explained her about my, process through DAF, through the tram design and train design, and how my approach was and what I was intending to learn. And I wasn't sure if it was fitting with the idea of research, like in the field, because I was new to the field. I didn't know, I didn't study it, and she like resonated with whatever I said. So yeah, I turned out to work there for 3 years. Actually, 1 year in research, and then the next 2 years again in design. So it was, I think that period was a really huge learning for me. It was also another period of self-doubt, because I go in these circles because I like to learn things. And one of the things that is the drawback of when you're trying to learn new things all the time is that you always end up feeling like a beginner. And then you have to like come out of your expert mindset, and then you need to begin again. But that's something good and bad. I don't know. You also have that same experience, because you've also tried to learn different things. But yeah, for me, I get bored after some time of doing the same thing, and then I want to learn something new. And then when you do that, it's not a comfortable space, because you don't know, you're like questioning every step you're making, and you don't know if you're doing the right thing, if you're going in the right direction. And yeah, embracing all of that was like challenging, but so fulfilling also at the same time. So yeah, I had those moments where I was like questioning myself if I would get certain kind of feedback. When you study 5 years in design and you get a certain kind of feedback, you're able to filter it well, because you've been in the field, and okay, when something's good and something's bad. You can understand, and if somebody gives you constructive feedback, you can take it well, because you know what to do to improve it. But when you don't know, then it becomes all the more hard to do that, because you don't know sometimes if you're in the right track, or if you're doing the right thing, or what the feedback you got, was it valid, how much should you filter. So yeah, I think that, and the biggest thing that I learned from that experience was to not take feedback personally. Like I started dissociating myself from work, because when it's really interesting, because when you're learning about design and you're trying to give yourself to it, you need to put yourself in it, and you need to associate yourself personally to it. But later, when you step into the professional world, it's also an art to unlearn that a bit, and to dissociate your personal self from your work. And it's really hard. I think it's really hard for creatives to do that, because I mean, it's you do give yourself a bit in that project. But yeah, that's a skill that I really learned while I was in Adient, and I think it really helps me now in this experience also.
Okay. And since it was in India, right? It was in Pune. And so how was the as before this, you didn't have any kind of experience in India. So how did it make a different from working in abroad and working in India? Like, of course, the culture, but like, what were the key points you think that it was better in abroad, or it was better in India to some extent?
I think work-wise, like daily work-wise, it's different, not because of being in different countries, but because they're very different. Very different places. Like Adient was again like a big corporate, lots of different offices, and you are cross global company, and you're working with people from different places, and you're working on projects which last much longer. And it was also a supplier, so it was a tier 1 supplier, so you also have this your customers, OEMs were our customers. So the kind of establishment was very different there. It was much like things would happen much slower. You would get more time. You could, but you had less freedom in the sense that you were doing something for customers. So you had a set brief and you had to satisfy them. And in that sense, that's why I liked the research part, because that's what the customers looked at to us. We were the experts and we should tell them things that they wouldn't know, and especially things about India, about the culture and about the country, because we had a lot of global customers. So it was a very different place, let's say. Whether I don't know if I can contrast this particular experience with India and abroad. I mean, when you think about it, actually, you hope that it would be really different, but the daily life is pretty much the same wherever you go. I mean, you go to work, you do your job, and you go home. It's pretty much the same. But some of the key nuances that that could be different, I would say, is in the way that you have hierarchy. I think in India, in corporate big companies. So I had both there. It was a big corporate and it was in India. You have a strong culture of hierarchy. So you have to follow certain protocols. You cannot go and overstep and talk to your boss's boss's boss without them knowing. You need to, it's a proper procedure for everything. Whereas in Croatia, and not just because I'm in Croatia, but because I'm in Rimac, the culture is very different. I mean, the kind of establishment is very different. The goal of the organization is transparency and growth and like everything. So nobody cares. You can go talk to anybody. Like, you can have a conversation with the CEO if you like. So the kind of place is very different, and the goals of the organization are very different. So I think that more and more that also in India you have these kind of establishments, and I think it's not one way or the other. But I am personally drawn to more transparency. I don't think I like working in places where you have a really big hierarchical structure. And also there's a lot of ownership, responsibility and ownership that's placed on you personally. So I'm doing a lot of things, I'm taking risks, I'm making mistakes, but I'm owning them and I'm learning from them. And I feel like empowered to make those mistakes also, because I feel like it won't be like, oh, you shouldn't be scared to make mistakes. Whereas in bigger establishments, you are sometimes, you're being careful because you don't want to upset anybody. And it's not to say that it's specifically about Orient. It wasn't the case, because I had really also good bosses there who would encourage you to do certain things and push the boundaries. But all in all, I would say that I think it's now working at Rimac is the sweet spot for me, because it's not a really small company, but it's still a startup and it's growing. So we're no longer really small, but we're neither like too big. And I think that's one of the challenges also that the organization faces, when it's trying to grow. How do you stop yourself from becoming sluggish? How do you stop yourself from becoming a white elephant and retain some of the dynamism that you had, flexibility that you had of a young organization? And I think that that's also the goal of the organization. So in that sense, I think for me, that's the sweet spot. And also working in India versus abroad, I don't think I have that much experience to comment on it yet. But I would say there's some nuances of culture that are different, but that are different like from a life living point of view more than working point of view, I would say.
Sounds fine. And I'm sure, but there are differences when you are approaching design in India and then abroad, right? I think because we are still again, we have to accept the fact that we are still developing in design as a design industry, because there are still a lot of norms which needs to go out of the system. So how is it? What do you think that we need to change as a design industry, to make it a to make a better approach, or to give more transparency, at least in the design studios, because at the same time it also reflects in the project you are doing, right? What do you think? What is that?
Mhm.
What are those things that you think that they need to change, or they need to maybe improve in their mindsets? Like in this scenario, Adient was still an international
Mhm.
brand, but for
Yeah.
example, for a startup, or for a company who's trying to build a product, and you're setting up a
Mhm.
design department for them, what do you think we as a society should keep in mind to make a better approach for design processes, with your
I think
experience?
I would say this more about the automotive industry in general rather than about India in specific. I mean, yeah, I take your point that we're still growing as a design. Design in India is still growing, but I think what I felt actually one of the things that I felt better about while I was working in India was that it was my culture and I had so much to say. And versus here, it's not my culture. And I sometimes don't know so much about how people would behave, although we're not designing just for Croatia, but it's a different if it's a different experience when you know people's, especially the kind of design that I would like to do, or like I would like to associate with people's culture and backgrounds and use experiences and then offer them creative solutions. Whereas here, I'm just looking at more the brand perspective, like what are we trying to do as a brand. I'm not looking at, of course, at the customer, but it's a different kind of in segment, let's say, also. So I felt more that I had a lot more to say when I was in my culture and I was doing designing, especially when I was designing for Indians in that sense. But in the sense that the question that you asked was more about how should we become more open and leave that baggage behind. I think I would say that more about the automotive industry. I think we protect the design in automotive industry so much, like it's some kind of coveted space where nobody can go, no one can touch, and it's like mysterious. And at the end of the day, I don't think that much secrecy brings anything. I mean, from my perspective, I haven't been also in that space where there's been, like in Adient, we had like access entry to the design studio, which I get. You need to have some kind, because we were designing for our customers. We had to be respectful of what we were doing. Some of the projects were confidential and so on. Versus if you contrast it to Remats, like the design office is like any other space in the company, and people can walk in, and it's really it's a breath of fresh air, let's say. But equally, there are people who would say like, "Oh, it's stupid. Sometimes we need to be a bit more careful." But I like this idea of like not taking yourselves too seriously. Like, okay, you're doing something, but what's the big secrecy? Like, it's not, you're not creating, like it's not, you're not reinventing the wheel. You're doing something, and it's great to share ideas, and it's just great to learn from each other and do something together. So I think that transparency is something that I would like more in the automotive industry in general, specifically in the automotive industry. And if you compare the hierarchical culture that we have in big organizations, I think that comes a little bit from the culture in India also. You have this hierarchy culture. You need to respect your seniors. You need to respect your elders. Like in some of the colleges in India, you need to call your seniors sir and ma'am. I think that we should let go a bit as a culture, because also here also the contrast is that for me it was really hard in the beginning when I'm talking to like older people who are in the production, like much older than me. I need to give them instructions and I need to be like authoritative with them, and you feel a bit like strange sometimes, like you're telling like a like a much older man what to do. And there's a lot of cultural nuance attached to it also, but you also letting that go. It was really interesting for me to let that go. At the end, how does age matter? Because a lot of people here who work with me are really young, and there are some older people also, but there is no, we're all like colleagues. So I think that comes easier to us because of our college, also because we had the same culture there. But if you look at people who come from traditional Indian backgrounds and traditional Indian education system, it's more difficult for them to let go, because you have this inherent tendency to be respectful. I think that's really good about our culture. But in a professional space, maybe we should let go of those things a bit, to treat ourselves as individuals and to treat each other, like each other's opinions, as important, whether you're young, whether you're a woman, whether you're whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would highly agree on what you said, every single point. um, yeah, I think there's this way in OEMs that you don't have to do certain things, or which are basically normal, right? Like calling someone by name, for example. But yeah, it's still getting better. It has better in a lot of spaces, but yeah, we need to let go of a lot of things which makes a workspace maybe not that ideal for designers, because there's a reason there's a reason um, we choose design, right? To be to be in a space where idea matters or ideas can thrive. But I think stuff like
Yeah.
this stops it, and it also impacts the processes. So yeah, that I think some really good points you've shared. um so throughout this time, you've worked as a service designer, then you figured out, okay, what service design is by breaking the understanding of traditional automotive. um, how are you constantly educating yourselves? Were you just educating yourself by working with people, or how are you looking yourself as a professional, and okay, we're thinking, okay, maybe you need to apply all these things to it? And how are you rechecking yourselves, like that, okay, is this the path you always wanted to do, or what was your process of constantly educating yourselves, and also the techniques like you've used in the projects and stuff like that? Is it
Yeah,
just the
I think
reading, or just take us through it?
mm, I think the point where I would like to educate myself comes when I'm just not getting enough motivation from my work anymore. So there have been those instances where I felt like, oh, I need to switch things a bit, because I'm not, like, I don't enjoy doing this at this moment right now. So I need to switch something so it's more motivating for me, it's more interesting for me. So all of those different instances, like dispersed across a few years, have been those. And then when I felt that, I've like I like to reflect a lot, I like to write a lot, I like to introspect on what I'm doing. So I've just sat down with myself, and in those moments of self-doubt also, when I'm thinking, oh, am I not good enough, is it not working out because I'm not good enough, am I like not creative enough, all of those things that all creatives feel. I think it's not said as often as it should, that we all have these moments of self-doubt when you've had like a bad review, or you've had a couple of weeks where you're not enjoying your work, you don't feel like doing what you're doing anymore. Those moments are when I've sat down with myself, I've talked to friends who are close to me, I've shared my thoughts with my friends, with my with myself. And those are times when I've thought about, okay, if not this, then what? And then when I've asked those kind of questions to myself, I've started doing different things. Like, for instance, when I was in Adient and I was learning about research, I was reading up a lot about research and different techniques of research. And then when I switched to industrial design back again, I started then teaching myself, like, again, about sketching skills, about different aspects of traditional industrial design. Then I started in becoming interested inherently towards color, material, and finishes. And that's when I started reading up about that, and also learning by doing, of course, like just doing things and seeing how it turns out, and practical application of your learning. And now I found like that I taught myself a lot about systems thinking, and I took like an online course on that, systems practice, with a close friend of mine, Abu. So I think those instances where I felt that I needed to switch things up, and not just about design. So when we were in lockdown last year, I suddenly felt like I had more time, even though I was working as much. I was sometimes even longer hours, but you were not going out, you were not having those social interactions. And then I started teaching myself to play an instrument. I've never played an instrument.
Wow.
So I think also also this, and it helped a lot because it taught me the importance of practice, of daily practice. Yeah, so just those, I think myself, when I'm not motivated or I'm having doubts about what I'm doing, I think those moments I just sit down with myself, and there are different ways that I educate myself then, either through reading or through courses or through just talking to people or doing things. So yeah, different ways.
What's that instrument you mentioned? Is it a guitar?
No, it's a ukulele. It's like a smaller version.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Nice.
has four strings, not six. So it's
Sweet.
easier. Yeah.
How well do you play that now? Is it like how long you've been playing it?
It's been over a year now. So I got it in November. Before actually we went into lockdown, I bought it. And one of my friends here who plays the guitar, he was like, "Oh, you should get a ukulele." So we went together and we bought the ukulele. And then yeah, I had it for a few months and I was struggling in the beginning, and I was like, no, I'm not good at this. And whenever you learn something new, so that struggle is something that I identify with, because whenever I'm learning something new, it's a struggle. But like small things, like you don't know how to turn your fingers like that when you've never played an instrument. And I couldn't, like, in the beginning my curve was really quick, and then I felt like I'm not learning anymore, because you start listening, you start understanding that it's not good. So actually, you're not going worse. You just are learning. You're training your ear. Yeah, you train your ear. So then, yeah, from the first few months in January, up until January, I was okayish, but I couldn't still play, like I couldn't continue to strum. But then when we went into lockdown in March, I think that's when I really, like, I used to practice daily. And then you realize that practicing every day is important. I think that brought me back to like college time, when we used to sketch and practice every day. And I was like, like whatever you learn, you can always practice, and you will be surprised. Like I used to record myself in the beginning, and now when I listen to myself, and I started singing with it and enjoying. So I think you're amazed at how much you learn.
I didn't know about that thing though. I think I would like to hear it also sometime. You should also put a video or something. Share it. Like I think
so. I mean, I can play like a few songs. The kind of music that I like to listen to. I think I started playing those for myself, and yeah, I enjoy also singing now with it. It's some of my it's something that brings me, like, when I've had a really busy day and really tired, I come back and just play that for a few minutes, and
it's very music. Yeah, music is very meditative. It always helps, man. That's talking about again, like talking about a meditative space, right? When you are sometimes the kind of job an industrial designer have is can be very tiring. The other day I was talking to Mario, and he was he's a designer at Lincoln Co. Of course, you know that. So he was also talking about that after some time you're spending a lot of you're spending a lot of number of hours, and you're keeping yourself busy, and after some point it doesn't stays enjoyable as the rest of the time, because you like design, that's why you do it. So what would you like to like tell us that the things that we need to keep on reminding ourselves when we think that okay, it's becoming very tiring? I think music, as you mentioned, is answers itself. But how do you again, like make sure that you're keeping your mental health intact?
I think everybody has their own answers to it. There's no one straight answer. But for me, especially like being away from home for the last year and I haven't seen my
Yeah.
family and like the whole situation with COVID. And then we've had, then like, we had like earthquakes and
Yeah.
everything is like happening at the same time. And then you're away from family, you're away from home, that especially in the holiday, during the holidays, it can become really daunting. And actually for me, this past 2 years have been also like a exploring journey, because I've lived by myself after few years. Before, in when I was in Pune, I had my comfort zone, I had my friends from college, and I could, I didn't have to be by myself that much. And I think when you have to be by yourself and you're also working and everything is, you're dealing with everything, it becomes hard on your mental health also. So one of the things that I did in the beginning, like I would say a year ago or more than a year ago, I wasn't really happy with the space I was in. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing at work so much, because I was like, oh, it's not how I imagined it. I was not so like inspired, and I was missing family. I just didn't want to be in that space. And that's when that's also a time where you can't distract yourself because you're in lockdown. You have no way to distract yourself. And how much Netflix will you watch? So that's the time where I started thinking of ways that could bring joy to me, other ways, not just work. Because a lot of times we attach so much of our self identity and self worth to work, that if something goes wrong at work, it impacts you so much. And that's, like I said, for creatives, it's hard to distance yourself from work. But I was not, I was thinking about what do I want to do? Like, what, again, I had those moments where I was like, okay, if not, what else? So I started listening to a lot of podcasts. I got into astronomy
Wow.
podcasts. So there are a couple of podcasts that I listen to when I'm like this. Then there's Good Life Project podcast. Then I listen to podcasts about designers who are freelancing, design
Hmm.
life,
Yeah.
and
Design
just
Life is a good
99%
podcast.
invisible.
Yeah.
Yeah, also 99%. There's like
Yeah.
lots of podcasts, like listening to people who have different kind of experiences. And also philosophy. I got into a lot of philosophy recently. So listening to philosophy podcasts, and coming back to some of the things that I would, like when I was a kid, how would I express myself creatively? And I would like paint a lot. So I started painting a bit, and I started writing a lot more. I used to write a lot when I was younger. And then through design education, I lost that a bit, because then we have this way of visually expressing ourselves. So yeah, I would journal, and I actually also started taking therapy. So I had
Wow.
few sessions of therapy. And
That's
so
great
yeah,
to hear.
everything all together. And I think
Yeah.
it's it's been really like helpful for me, at least personally. And yeah, just talking, sharing with friends how you're feeling, because we are all in the same boat, more or
Hmm.
less, because a
Yeah.
lot of us were living by ourselves and doing things
Yeah.
by ourselves. And I think when I started doing that, when I started dissociating my self-worth from work, I also started finding more things that I enjoy at work and pursuing them. So when you don't put so much pressure on yourself to be good, to be perfect, I think it also obviously, and of course music, and I love to read. So I also started reading a lot more. And yeah, just finding those ways of self-expression. So internalizing things, learning new things, of course, from people, but also expressing yourself sometimes. I think that's really important, like how you're feeling, how do you externalize that. So through music, through art, and through writing, and through like all of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think all of this sounds so liberating to me because I think I can relate to few pointers. And I think in order to become a better version of yourself, you need to keep in mind all of these things out of your work, because sometimes we get a lot of times we get too attached to even I think this is the same with the creative community. Designers, artists, they get too attached with their work, and it kind of makes their life difficult where they are just kind of stuck and like mentally sick. And also I'm glad to know that you've been taking therapy. I think that's something we should all consider.
Yeah, I
So
would recommend highly.
yes, it helps. So yeah, talk about Remax, Swati. How have been your experience, and about how they've been I've been seeing a lot of articles and videos that they've been doing some great stuff, and under the kind
Yeah.
of departments they're managing. If you are allowed to, of course, the things you are allowed to say.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, in general, I would just repeat what's already out there, actually. Nothing, but yeah, we're like, Rimac is a young organization, um, about 10 years old now. And it's a classic story of like, somebody who has a almost impossible dream and somehow makes it happen. And, the kind of energy is really great. Like, a lot of things that we're doing for the first time. So there's not a lot of experience in some spaces, but we're just pushing ourselves and like doing things and just getting out there. And like, just the thing that I would just if I had to sum up in one word, it's just getting out there and doing it. So this energy that, from the beginning, that I really liked here was, if you don't know something, you just try it and you ask and you do it. You're not waiting, because it's a really fast-paced environment, and we have a really short amount of time to do anything and mm, to to realize what we want to do. But of course, then, because you don't have experience and you're doing a lot of things on the first time, you make a lot of mistakes. But since the same thing that I said in the beginning, that I don't feel scared of making mistakes, because we're all like, in this environment all together. So it's a really nice energy all around. Like, it's you get inspired to push yourself a lot, to and also this thought process of, what I've got from my boss now, is that you can, if you want to do something, you can do it. Like, if you put your mind to something, you can do it. There's no, like, you can do anything, which is really great. But sometimes I've also felt like, I will talk now for me personally, not for everybody, and not for the company specifically, but for me personally, I've also felt like I've put myself too much into work also. Like, I've not had that much of a balance, because I don't have like a personal, like, I don't have family here. I don't have a set social. All my friends are from work. So it's also like, can be, how do I put it? It can also be, if you don't check yourself, it's really easy to be addicted to that also. So I'm like consciously checking myself to tune out and switch off at times. But in general, like, my journey here has been really interesting. Like I said in the beginning, I wasn't really inspired, motivated. I was expecting something different. But then I slowly like started putting less pressure on myself, and less pressure on myself also to be creative, because a lot of things that I need to do here are not so creative and they're not so exciting. Like, I'm working on Excel and so on. So also this, like, not putting so much pressure on yourself to just be anyway. And then that helped me a lot. And I think one of the things that I really like about here is that I've had the opportunity to work on things apart from design also, because it's a young organization. So you also have the opportunity to influence processes. You have the opportunity to influence how you work, how you have relationships with people. So I think there's a lot of freedom. There's not a lot of clarity all the time, but there's a lot of room for improvement and freedom. And there's a lot of excitement, of course. So because it's an exciting product. And at one time, I also found myself questioning, like, oh, like, I thought that I would be in the social innovation space, and I'm in this like hypercar, like, luxury segment. But I think that my motivation is a bit different. My motivation comes from just helping people and making this grow. Like, it's just that feeling of like being in a community where you're creating something together that is motivating to me, rather than the product, of course, itself, it's a cool product, but my motivation comes always from just people. And this energy that I talked about is what motivates me actually here. So yeah.
Wow, that feels so amazing. Um, what are the kind of tips you'd like to give to the people who are trying to make into the service design scene currently, who are studying it, and to the design students in general who are figuring out okay what they have to do and like how to pursue it, how to get better, have that kick-ass portfolio you always dreamt of?
Yeah. I think now more than ever, it's become like important to really sit back and question ourselves, like why we are doing things rather than what you want to do. So I think the motivation of why, like it came to me through different stages. Like it didn't come to me immediately. I also entered design because I was fascinated by car design, and if that's something that inspires somebody, that's great. But also to answer that question for yourself from the beginning, why? And it doesn't have to come immediately. Everyone has their own journey. But I think that there is so much that design can contribute in fields that we haven't yet opened and tapped into, like the public sector, specifically in education. Like design thinking can contribute so much to the way that curriculums are designed. Like our way of thinking is slightly different, and I think that a lot of different industries can benefit from that. They don't even need to be creating any product. And also, like, what is the right outcome for that problem? Also thinking like it doesn't necessarily have to be that you design a product for students to study, but it can also be just a service, or it can be an application. It can be so many things. So I think also putting our mind to fields that don't you wouldn't usually think that design would go there. I think that's the advice that I would give to young students, to designers, because if you go in more saturated fields, there's probably only so much that we can do. And especially now, after we are all going through together, like changes in the way that we look at life and live life, I think that that is something that can really stand you out. And it's not something philanthropic. It makes business sense, because if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you will only find a couple of people, or the cream who will be good, and then you won't be able to find or contribute in the best way that you can. So yeah, designing for organizations, designing for healthcare, education. I'm just giving some ideas, but it can be so much more. It can go really wide. Like my sister was telling me she did her master's in education from Harvard, and one of the courses that she had was design thinking. And so they're in education also teaching students how to think. And design thinking is just one way, but there are so many different methodologies that you can teach yourself to become a better designer also, but also a better contributor to anything, and to succeed in life, or to grow actually. So I think, yeah, that would be my advice, to think about other industries that you can influence and go to. Yeah.
Wow, I think that's very apt. Yeah, it's there's so many insights I've got from the conversation we had, Swati. What are your future plans? Like, where do you would like to see yourself maybe in next 5 years? The questions of the hour.
I don't know, to be honest. Like I said, my long-term goal was to work in the social innovation space, but I haven't like kickstarted it officially. And I mean, I'm really enjoying where I'm at right now, but equally, like I said, it's not something I don't have professional goals, but I have personal goals.
Huh.
Like I want to be closer to my family, to spend some time with them. So my plan for the next few, let's say, months is to be more to dedicate more time to my personal life, and to have this more work-life balance. And I would hopefully get married soon also.
Yeah.
So I have more personal goals, let's say, not so much. I mean, professionally, I'm growing, I'm learning really. So I'm happy at the space I am in. I would just like to balance it out a bit more, like to dedicate more time where on the things, on the people that I value in life. Yeah,
Wow,
that.
amazing to hear that. Um, uh, all the best for whatever you want to do in life, Swati, and of course we'll keep in touch. And thanks a lot for doing this. Thanks a lot for taking this time to share your journey. So
Thank you for having me. It was really wonderful for
yeah,
me to talk
I
to
see
you
you
as
soon,
well.
Swati. See you.
See you.
Peace.
Bye.